Meeting to order. We will start with the consent agenda. All the following items which concern reports and items of a routine nature normally approved at AHA meetings will be approved by one vote unless any trustee desires to have a separate vote on any or all these items. The consent agenda consists of the discussion, consideration, and action on the following items. Minutes of the regular trustee meeting, May 25th, 2021. Minutes of the regular finance meeting, June 15th, 2021. And a check report, May 9th, 2021 through June 8th, 2021.
Make a motion that we approve the consent agenda, items A through C as printed.
Second.
I have a motion by Dr. Brown, a second by Dr. Simon to approve the consent agenda as it was presented. Roll call vote, please.
Yes.
Yes.
Bowman.
Here.
Simon.
Yes.
Brown.
Yes.
Ball.
Yes.
Okay. Next is the CEO's report. Candace.
All right, short report this month. As you can see, we have hired several new staff. Michelle Hamilton is our new revenue cycle manager. She started right after the late Memorial Day holiday. She's jumped in both feet first and doing a great job. We've enjoyed having her. New hires from Walking Wednesday, David Camp, our HR director, did a walk-in interview process, which we hired 4 new employees from last Wednesday doing that. Consequently, David submitted his resignation. He is moving, he's accepted a job in Alaska, I can't remember, Barrows, Alaska, and he'll be leaving us, I think, about the middle of July. So Kiki here, who's taking notes tonight, has volunteered to step up and learn the HR process. So she's training with David right now and will be the interim HR manager. Really not a lot on there to report out of the ordinary. Emergency room is still really busy. Upfront collections hanging right where we usually are, right around 38,000. The OB clinic started May 26th, and I heard Regina say that Dr. Garner, the cardiologist, will be here this week in clinic as well. So excited to get those things started. That's all I have. Does anybody have any questions for me?
The only thing I'll put up, just make a comment on, you guys performed the sports physicals for the Alva High School and middle school students, and I know that was very, very much appreciated by all those people.
Absolutely.
Any questions for Candace? If not, I would entertain a motion.
I make a motion to approve the CEO's report. Second.
We have a motion by Kim Ball, a second by Dr. Simon for the approval of the Sheriff Medical Center written report for June 22nd, 2021. Roll call vote, please.
Bowman.
Yes.
Simon.
Yes.
Brown.
Yes.
Ball.
Yes.
Casper.
Yes. Okay, next, CFO's report. Chris?
I got a few things to go over tonight, so what I'll do is we've got the financials, the budgets, and the audit. So what I'll do is I'll start with the hospital, do the hospital financials and their budgets, and then do the nursing home, their budgets, home center budgets, so it'll all flow together. So we'll start with the hospital. Cash at the end of May was $167,641. Just 5.3 days of operating expenses once you take out depreciation. Our AR number increased another 72,000, so it's still growing. With the addition of Michelle Hamilton, like Candace had said earlier, we're hoping that's going to start going back down. She's kind of jumped in here and hit the ground running. The minute she stepped in, she wasn't afraid to ask questions, and in our first couple meetings with TrueBridge, is not afraid to kind of get after them and let them know what she expects and the progress she expects to see within the next few months moving forward. So I'm hoping that with her expertise, she can kind of help us get this back under control a little bit. Accounts payable was $588,000, which is pretty high for the end of the month. It's a little inflated because in that amount was the final payment of the security system invoice, which was about $200,000. That invoice has since been paid, and because that was a COVID expense, we also got that money reimbursed back through the COVID fund. So that's why that looks a little high. If you look at the inpatient and outpatient revenue, inpatient revenue was up. Outpatient revenue was down. Overall, we actually ended up coming out $6,800 on top of what we had for the month of April, even with the outpatient being lower than it was. But you can see the inpatient picked up that slack. Operating expenses were still up. We had, like I said, with the security system, we still have some COVID expenses that we're still paying on. That is going down. The security system was kind of the last large item that we had as far as COVID was concerned. I think what's also interesting is if you flip to page 4, you can kind of see the difference from May 21 and May 20. We put these in the financials every month. Now that you're getting into when COVID was really hitting, the next 6-7 months of flipping back to look at the prior months, the months from the prior year will really be interesting. So you can see the revenue, the patient revenue was almost $340,000 more than it was at the same time last year, and that's a direct correlation to COVID. We get farther into the year, looking at those two numbers will be really interesting to see. I also wanted to show you towards the back of the hospital section. Kiki started putting together, I can't remember if this was here last month or not, but she started putting together some statistics by provider, by clinic, so that everybody can see. A lot of these are pretty interesting. You can see by the month what providers, if their patient load is going up or down, or if the West End or urgent care is going up or down. Just another way to look at all the numbers. We kind of give you just an overall total of how many outpatients we're seeing and inpatients we're seeing, but this will actually kind of break it down even further and tell you how many each provider actually saw. So she's been working hard on that and done a great job getting those together, so keep going and thank you for that. I think that's kind of cool to look at whenever you can take a total overall number and then break it down and see more of the detail. And those are after the budgets, but right before the med staff page are where those stats are. Do you have any questions about the hospital's financials? If not, we'll flip right after financials is the hospital's capital budget. Kind of how this spreadsheet works. As you can see, the department that put in the request for the capital item. Capital items, we put everything that was requested in here, but typically your capital items are more, $5,000 or more, your bigger ticket items. A lot of people still put in things that were less than that, so we went ahead and put them on here, but just so everybody can see what's out there. And then you got columns A, B, and C. A is your top priority, and then B is your second, and then B is your third priority. Just kind of goes from there. And then you go from year to year in 2022, what we expect to expend to get these items in 23 and 24. Most of our, a lot of big ticket items that we had, we actually bought throughout the year because they actually fell under the COVID reimbursable expenses. So this list is actually smaller than it would have been if we wouldn't have had COVID funds. So that's kind of nice that we were able to do that. The bigger items on here though are the laparoscopic tower, which is for surgery. The one we've had is starting to get pretty old, and we're going to need to get one fairly new, especially with having some new surgeons coming in. The other item that was pretty important were the HERC equipment to monitor patient beds in the ER. That's something that nursing has been asking for. It just helps them monitor patients when they're on the floor. They can go back and see what's happening in the ER. It just gives them better monitoring systems so they can keep track of their patients. Also there's a wheelchair accessible van. The hospital, the nursing home, and the homestead all have this item on their capital budget. This is something that Kelly is trying to get with a grant. He's hoping it's something that we can get 3, and so all 3 entities would have their own wheelchair accessible van. So this is money that wouldn't come from the hospital necessarily. You'd have a grant to help pay for it, but hopefully we'll know about that whenever he's finished with his application. Put that through, we'll see how that works out. But hopefully, fingers crossed, that's something we can get. The next page is the operating budget. This was kind of a difficult thing to create for this upcoming year, just because you really can't look at this year or last year and try to create a budget, just because everything was so out of whack with COVID, with your expenses being up and revenues being down, and then sometimes your revenues are up and your expenses, it was just kind of all over the place. So you can see in the third column, there's the 2020 budget, which this was what was budgeted going into 2020 by Kevin, the former CFO. We thought it'd be best to start with 2020's budget and tweak it from there, just because that would give the last normal budget numbers that you'd be looking at. And then from there, you can see we tweaked our outpatient revenue. We bumped that up a little bit, knowing that we will have a few new doctors that will be coming in starting in September. So we bumped that number up, which in turn also bumps up your salary number. So salaries are obviously going to be higher with 2 new doctors coming in. Outside of that, we kind of just based a lot of this on how we expect, expenses with supplies. That number's a little bit lower, but it's also higher. We took some of that off because of some of that being COVID expenses, knowing we won't have that much longer moving forward. But then we also raised another 10%, knowing that with everything going on, with people trying to get equipment, and with all the manufacturing companies having their issues, supply costs probably going up.
Something I might just interject there. One of the things that we discussed in finance as well is the other tricky part of this budget is especially when you're looking at last year, is, a lot of people didn't go to their doctor's appointments. A lot of people didn't come to the hospital just because COVID was going on. And so now it's like, all right, are they going to now go get those things taken care of? Whether it was a surgery, whether it was, they didn't do their annual exams or whatever that may be. And will those things pick back up? We're banking on that a lot of those things will get caught back up. And even just if everybody gets back on normal, that some of those numbers could be there. And I think we were fairly conservative. If you look at what Kevin had budgeted and what we're budgeting, especially in regards to inpatient, we're quite a bit less. And we're really pretty darn close to where they were in outpatient, yet we're adding, when Kevin did that budget, we didn't have Dr. Galbraith, we didn't have Madrid, and plus the 2 Burkes. So those numbers technically could go way higher than what we're projecting. But it was trying to be somewhat conservative. I know it shows a net loss, but we're actually cash positive by $70,000 when you go off of EBITDA. So, anyways, I just wanted to interject that.
Yeah, and like you said, being cash positive, take the depreciation out, and that's not really a cash flow issue from there, so that'll help the numbers. But yeah, I think, just piggybacking what he said, I think those are very conservative revenue numbers. If you have 3-4 new doctors and you're only expecting $800,000, you would typically expect to see quite a bit more than that from new physicians. So hopefully that's the case. Time will tell. Does anybody have any questions about either budget? Okay.
Okay, while we're there, Chris, and those are fresh on everybody's mind.
Yep.
Let's look at the operating budget first. If there are no questions, I would entertain a motion.
I would make a motion that we approve the operating budget for the next fiscal year as presented.
Second.
I have a motion by Dr. Brown, and a second by Dr. Simon for the approval of the operating budget. Roll call vote, please.
Simon,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Ball,
Yes.
Jasper,
Yes.
Bowman.
Yes.
Okay. The next item is the capital budget, which was the page before. Are there any questions in regards to the capital budget?
Make a motion that we approve the capital budget as presented.
Second.
I have a motion by Dr. Brown, a second by Kim Ball for the approval of the capital budget. Roll call vote, please.
Brown,
Yes.
Ball,
Yes.
Jasper,
Yes.
Bowman,
Yes.
Simon.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, Chris?
So with that, we'll move on to the nursing homes financials. Their cash balance at the end of May was $430,902, 45.5 days of operating expenses. Their AR was down to $719,000, which is $52,000 less than it was in April. So they're doing a good job of starting to get their bills, their patients' bills getting paid. Their gross patient revenue was down. If you look at that, their gross patient revenue was down even though their total patient days were up. I know Kelly isn't here tonight, but if you look back in his report, and he would tell you the reason that the revenue was down even though the patient days were up was because of their skilled days. They had 61 skilled days in May compared to 178 in April. There's more revenue that goes into your skilled days than they're just their normal inpatient days. So that's kind of, if anybody's wondering how that would happen, that explains it. Their skilled days have slowly tapered off in the last several months, going from a high in January to back down to 61 is what it is now. As far as their expenses, month to month, they're pretty much identical. Whether it was the salaries or any of their other operating expenses, supplies, most of that's pretty steady, even keeled. There was only a $7,000 difference, a decrease from this month to the prior month, so not much different there. He's done a good job of managing those expenses from month to month, especially when it comes to like the agency nursing and trying to keep that down as low as possible. Somebody have any questions about any of that? Okay. With that, I'll move on to their capital budget. Not many large ticket items on here. There's a couple of tray carts, glass plateables that dietary's asking for, and an oven. The biggest things on here are, the van, which, we talked about, which is on each end of these capital budgets. Got the van on there. And then their big item, which is their facility-wide HVAC project. That is still going on. We the talks for this are still kind of in the works. We're talking with the engineering firm to figure out what the total price could be. We still don't have that yet. So whenever we get more information, I'm sure that'll come available in the board meetings. It's something that's been needed for quite some time, so we're hoping we can make it work. Kelly's been putting back as much money as he can to try to make this happen. Like I said, hopefully we'll know more. I know we have a meeting with the engineering firm in a couple weeks, so hopefully we'll know some more then. But that is obviously the largest item on anybody's budget. You know, anytime you redo an entire HVAC system, you're looking at a lot of money. So hopefully we can make that work.
And he has the cash for that project.
Yes, most all of the COVID money that he had, anytime that he had any expenses or if he had lost revenue, when we were able to recognize that as COVID reimbursable expenses or revenue, he basically set it aside. So most of the money that he has, that he's recognized, he's been able to keep. And he's kept up with all the other expenses with just their normal operating revenue that they've brought in. So yeah, he's done a really good job with that. He's got a good chunk, like I said, with us not knowing exactly how much it'll be, he very well could have enough money in his bank account to pay for it himself, or maybe it might be a little bit less. We'll know more in the next few weeks. So, but they've done a really good job with that. So we're going to talk about the next one or vote on that first?
Okay, those are down under item 8. 8B is the capital budget. Does anybody have any discussion about that? Any questions? If not, I would entertain a motion.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Dr. Brown.
Make a motion that we approve the operating budget for Sure Commonwealth's own.
Second.
We have a motion by Dr. Brown, a second by Kim Ball for the approval of the capital budget for the convalescent home. Roll call vote, please.
Ball,
Yes?
Gaspard,
Yes.
Bowman,
Yes.
Simon,
Yes.
Brown.
Yes.
Okay.
So the operating budget on the next page for the nursing home. In talking with Kelly, he kind of based most of his operating budget off of this year's revenue and expenses, and kind of how he was projecting the next year to go. As far as the revenue side, he expects them to fill a few more spots. I think he mentioned he thought they would at least fill 3 spots, if not maybe more. So that's where he got his the $4.1 million, that uptick in inpatient revenue, just by filling some empty rooms in there. He also, part of that inpatient revenue number also is the skilled services. He would like them to try to do more skilled services, which I just mentioned earlier, kind of gives you a little bit more money on that side of it. So with having the rooms filled and doing more skilled services, he thought they'd be closer to the $4.1 million range in revenue. His other operating revenue was mostly from COVID funds. They'll receive $150,000 from OHCA, supplemental COVID reimbursement. So they'll have that money that they can still use for the next year, however long they have to use that money. As far as the expenses go, it's been difficult, but he thinks that in the next year their agency nursing will go down. They're going to work really hard at doing that. He said as of right now, they've had to have a few more, they've had to hire, I think, 6 for right now. He's hoping they can get that down within the next few months so they can get back to 0. Some of their salaries have gone up just with market adjustments from the nurses, and this is kind of the growing concern with nurses everywhere. There's been a lot of market adjustments for everybody, with the nurses being able to make a lot more money traveling. A lot of nurses are leaving, and taking higher paying jobs, traveling to other hospitals to make more money. So it's been harder to keep your nurses around knowing that they can travel and make more. So the nursing home as well as the hospital has been trying to keep up with all that to keep nurses around and get nurses to come work here. So that's why it is one of the reasons that his salaries are expected to go up a little bit, just trying to keep people. And that's just a big concern for everybody right now, is trying to keep your nurses or trying to get your nurses to stay where they are. You know, a lot of them could make enough money in 5 months right now that they'd make in an entire year before COVID. So it's proven to be pretty difficult. He also put in there, he had a percentage points increase in some of the supplies, same as the hospital, not really knowing what supplies are going to be like with everything going on right now. We kind of added some percentage points to that just to bump that up. We did 5%, it could be 10, it could be 15, we're not really sure, but that's kind of what our guess is right now. So, any questions about the nursing home budget?
Any questions? One of the things that he did make a comment is, you know, pre-COVID, we were upwards of 50, I don't remember the exact number now, but 50-some inpatients, and it may not be that we get back up to there anytime soon. Two reasons. One is just the law of numbers as far as hitting that happy medium of where we make money. The other part is you know, during COVID, there were people that took their families out of nursing homes, out of care, and brought them back in home just so that they knew that they could see them. So who knows if or when those people move back in, or if they do have to move back in. Any other questions? If not, I would entertain a motion for the operating budget of the convalescent home.
I make a motion to approve the operating budget for the convalescent home.
Second.
We have a motion by Kim Ball, a second by Dr. Simon, for the approval of the operating budget for the convalescent home. Roll call vote, please.
Gasper,
Yes.
Bowman,
Yes.
Simon,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Ball.
Yes.
Okay. Chris?
Guess we'll move on to the homestead financials. If you look at their resident revenue, they had, you know, a slight decrease in their resident revenue and a slight increase in their expenses. Kind of, if you flip to that page 2, you can kind of see how they're doing year to year, May of 21 to May of 20. You know, they had a better year this year than they did last year. And whether, you know, kind of surprising having a better overall fiscal year than they did in 2020. I'm not really sure what would have happened at the homestead with COVID, if people, you know, same deal with nursing home moving out. Kind of thought that that's how it would work, but they've actually had a pretty good year over there at the homestead compared to 2020. So it's always interesting to look at those prior years and then the total of prior years to see how it stands up from year to year, especially this year, going from COVID starting in fiscal year 20 and flowing right into 2021 to see the difference between how the years look. You know, the supplies expense, you know, is going up. You can see on that one, they, you know, spent $15,000 in supplies in May. You know, who knows, there's a chance that that number could look that way for the next few months. You know, it was 14 back in December, but outside of that, it's typically around $6,000, $7,000, $8,000. So I know Carla has her hands full trying to manage supply costs right now and trying to keep her budget where it needs to be with the uncertainty of supply costs throughout the country. So, you know, I tip my hat to her. She's doing a great job of keeping all that under control and keeping everything running over there. Her and Kelly work really hard to make sure that the homestead runs efficiently, and they're definitely doing that, even in a rough time as it is. So hats off to Carla. Any questions about their financials? Yeah, their capital budget only has the van on there. That was the only thing that they had just from Kelly. Like I said, that's from the grant also, so nothing else to really talk about as far as their capital budget goes.
Okay, so there's one item, and that is contingent upon a grant. Any questions? If not, I would entertain a motion on the homestead's capital budget.
I make a motion to approve the homestead's capital budget.
Second.
We have a motion by Kim Ball, second by Dr. Simon for the approval of the homestead's capital budget. Roll call vote, please.
Bowman,
Yes.
Simon.
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Ball,
Yes?
Gasper.
Yes. Okay. Next would be their operating budget.
The operating budget is similar to the nursing home in that he expects maybe to get a couple more residents, filling some open rooms over there. Whether he gets them or not, he's not really sure. I know they were also talking about having a rate increase, a slight rate increase over the homestead. So that would be where your revenues come from. The meals, he expects to be pretty similar as it was this year. We added on, kind of some market adjustments for the salaries, and we also have, put a 10% increase on the supplies. So you can kind of see where, like I said, it's pretty similar to the nursing home with salaries and supplies being the big questions on how the budget's going to go for the upcoming year. But other than that, everything for them looks like they're doing okay.
Okay. Any questions in regards to the operating budget? If not, I would entertain a motion.
I make a motion to approve the operating budget of the homestead.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Kim Ball, a second by Greg Bowman for the approval of the operating budget for the homestead. Roll call vote, please.
Simon,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Ball,
Yes?
Gasper,
Yes.
Bowman.
Yes.
Okay.
Now what you all came for. Talk about the audit. I will keep this pretty short. You have the audit in front of you. If you would like to look through it, I'm more than happy to. You can take it home with you and look at it, whatever you want to do. I'm just going to tell you, the BKD came and they talked several weeks ago, went over the audit with us, didn't really find any major issues. It was performed in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards. No scope limitations, unmodified opinion. Those are things you kind of want to hear coming out of an audit. It means everything looked pretty good. They didn't really have any issues. There is that emphasis of matter, the going concern. As far as I know, that in a rural hospital, you will probably have that most every year, and that's just the can you keep going the way you're going is how they put it. And in a small hospital, it'll be a little bit tougher. Every year it's going to be tough to get by year to year. So I think this has been on the audit for the past several years. So it's no concern of anybody, I don't think. No big disclosures. The only thing they were talking about were how COVID impacts and funding. If you want to flip through the first few pages, you can kind of see. You can skip past the audit adjusting entries. And you can kind of see the balance sheets from year to year for 2019, 2020. Obviously, the big number there, you look at cash and cash equivalents, you had $252,000 in 2019. In 2020, you had $6 million. That is all COVID money right there. We had $4.something million in COVID funds that we were given. So that's why that number just looks so large compared to 2019. Outside of that, a lot of your other numbers are pretty standard from what they were the year before. current with the liabilities. You know, we had the deferred grant revenue, which is, you know, 3.7 million. There's COVID. Kind of your major difference between year to year is just how COVID impacted the balance sheets. They really didn't have any big issues, you know, with us being a smaller hospital. There were a couple questions, you know, just making sure we're checks and balances. You know, now Steve and I are both here, having somebody go through and review journal entries. You know, we're able to do that now, and in 2019 we weren't really able to do that. So just little things, but for the most part they went through and told us that they're happy with how the audit came out. Thought everybody was doing a good job and had no write-ups. If you guys want to look at that, you can. More than happy to. This sheet that I was looking off of, this one right here, is just kind of a summary sheet that they went over. So that just kind of gives you the generic, just the basics of what they found and what they were looking at. If you would like to go through the rest of it, there's about 50-something pages you can look through if you really would like to read it.
I might just add while he was here, and he talked to the finance committee. I think one of their biggest, and I think it's every hospital, no matter what the size, but is the COVID impact and the funding that we received, and also how we were recording it, how we were spending it. And I think he commended us, and so we need to give kudos to Steve for all the spreadsheets that you see month after month that he goes through and puts together. But there's not a question of how we spent the money or where that money went. Every line is itemized, and they appreciated that and thought that was good. But I think that's their biggest concern for us going into the next year is as we spent that money and then we go through that audit. I think there's a lot of folks that maybe won't be sitting in as good a spot as what we are. So, good job in that. Any other questions as far as the audit report goes? If not, I would entertain a motion for the BKD audit report for fiscal year 2020.
I make a motion to approve the BKD audit report for fiscal year 2020.
Second.
We have a motion by Kim Ball and a second by Dr. Simon for the approval of the BKD audit report for fiscal year 2020. Roll call vote, please.
Brown,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Jasper,
Yes.
Bowman,
Yes.
Simon.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Chris, do you have anything else that you can?
You know, I was trying to come up with something else, but I think that's all I have.
Okay, very good. Steve, do you have anything?
Sure, I've got something else. Well, I'll briefly go over these spreadsheets that Jason just referred to, but if you'll look behind the CFO board report tab and behind the budget papers that Chris just went over, there are 2 pages, actually more than that, about 6 pages that runs landscape. The first one says at the top, hospital use of COVID-19 stimulus funds. And just to refresh your memory, here I look at potential lost revenue. I look at operating expenses that are COVID related. I look at payroll expenses that were for COVID payroll back when we were paying that. Look at capital expenditures that are COVID related, and to give us an idea of how we're using those funds. So just to quickly go over this, the operating expenses for May, about $36,000 for the month. Those continue to trend downwards for the most part. And that mainly consists of, as we talked about earlier, the fact that we're having a real hard time staffing as far as nurses go. And a direct result of the pandemic and the consequences of that. So we have some agency nursing each month. We have personal protective equipment that we're still buying to meet federal guidelines. Still have some COVID testing that we're doing that we're paying for. So those are the main categories of COVID-related expenses we're having now. As far as capital expenditures, in May we paid for the balance due on the physical therapy entrance remodel. So I have started looking at what we have been reimbursed by third-party payers as far as these expenses that I've taken, like the cost of testing. If insurance pays us for part of that cost, we can't collect that money from both sources. We can't collect it from the insurance agency and then also collect that from the stimulus fund. So we have to make adjustments there. I'm in the middle of that process. Through the end of December, we already had about $123,000 worth of that type of expense that insurance had already reimbursed us for. So when we put all that together, at the end of May, we had about $735,000 of COVID-related cash that we could potentially spend. I can tell you in June, the first 3 weeks in June, we've already had about $25,000 of COVID-related expenses that we've reimbursed or will be. We paid the balance of the door lock and camera system here in the hospital. It was almost $180,000, and we paid for a portable x-ray that was purchased to deal with the COVID situation. And that was about $110,000. So you add all that together, that takes away about $315,000. We're also going to be going back and looking in more detail at some more of the salaries for administration and certain individuals that were heavily involved in the pandemic here in the hospital. We'll be taking parts of those salaries as reimbursable costs. We're also looking at some additional expenses that we will be paying possibly by the end of June. So we're thinking when the dust settles and we get all this figured out, that we're going to be close to break even as far as not having to repay a lot of that COVID-related money to the Health and Human Services. Hopefully we'll be able to keep the majority of about $3.6 million here at the hospital, and I believe at the nursing home it was $600,000, something like that, that we're going to be able to keep. So, any questions about any of that? I went over it real quick. I hope to have a lot more solid numbers in July once we get past the end of June and we get some more of these expenses figured out. We should know where we stand at that point. If you want to turn back to the convalescent home tab, get behind the budget pages, and you have some pages running the length of the page for the nursing home. Over there at the end of May, about $77,000 of funds remaining, stimulus funds. Again, we're going to be looking in great detail at the convalescent home expenses, and we're going to be taking some more expenses out of that, and feel pretty sure that we're going to be able to use the vast majority of those funds also. Does anyone have any questions over any of that or anything else?
And they had received another $80,000 in May.
They have. And that money can be spent going forwards through the end of December of 2022. So we have quite a year and a half to spend that money, and we'll probably get about that much more funds going forward. So I think they've realized the fact that convalescent homes and other long-term care facilities are probably going to be impacted by the pandemic longer than about anything else. So they're continuing to fund those organizations so they can keep going and not be adversely affected.
Effective. Yeah. Very good. Any questions for Steve? If not, thank you guys. Appreciate it. Okay. Med Staff Executive Committee has 2 items for credentialing. Anything you have to add about that? Okay, so the first one is to reappoint to courtesy staff Reggie Pappy, MD.
I make a motion that we reappoint to courtesy staff Reggie Pappy, MD.
Second.
We have a motion by Dr. Brown, a second by Dr. Simon to reappoint to courtesy staff Reggie Pappy, MD. Roll call vote, please.
Ball,
Yes.
Casper,
Yes.
Bowman,
Yes.
Simon,
Yes.
Brown.
Yes.
Okay. The next item is to appoint to active staff Scott Evans, DO.
Make a motion that we appoint to active staff Scott Evans, DO.
Second.
We have a motion by Dr. Brown, a second by Dr. Simon to appoint to active staff Scott Evans, DO. Roll call vote, please.
Casper,
Yes.
Bowman,
Yes.
Simon,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Ball.
Yes.
Okay. The next item is QAPI.
I have a short report for QAPI. The monthly quality assurance performance improvement committee met on June the 9th. Darlene Bainbridge from SQSS was present for that meeting. Departments presenting included the nursing department, emergency department, business office, pharmacy, maintenance, urgent care, and radiology. Reports were also given by the safety committee and infection control. New and updated procedures were approved by the committee. The committee reviewed the corrective action plan activities related to the recent recent survey. All corrective action plans were found to be on track for the projected completion date. In addition to that, we did receive approval from DNV for our corrective action plan that was submitted. We are required to submit within 60 days or submit to them proof of all of those corrective actions that we said we were going to do. We have to provide snapshots of SQSS and send to them to show that we are performing those activities. So we will send those to them and likely will not have to go through another on-site return visit. So that's where we're at. And you will find on back all of those policies and procedures that have been added or tweaked. You have a list of those as well as the validation calendar of contracts that have been reviewed and found to be compliant.
So yeah, under the improvement to patient care tab is the validation calendar for May, and then the revisions report she spoke of. Are there any questions in regards to any of those? Everything was compliant, or no review was required? Any questions?
Make a motion that we approve the revisions report dated May 26, 2021.
Second.
We have a motion by Dr. Brown, a second by Dr. Simon for the approval of the revisions report dated May 26, 2021. Roll call vote, please.
Bowman,
Yes.
Simon,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Ball,
Yes.
Casper.
Yes. Okay, thank you, Candace. Kelly is not here, so we'll skip number 10. Next, Bridget, St. Anthony's report.
Okay, just a quick few things. We're working with Pat Rogers at McAfee and Taft to do a revision for medical staff bylaws and rules and regs. There's 8 hospitals that are participating with this, including Alva. It's been several years since a lot of us really had time to pay attention to our med staff bylaws and rules and regs, and so that was kind of one of our goals for rural development this year, was to figure out a way that we could help the affiliate hospitals accomplish that. So with 8 hospitals participating and SSM putting some money in, it should be a very cost-effective project for the hospitals to get those updated, and then those should be good to go for several years in the future. So our goal to get that done is by the end of the year. Kansas had also reached out to us about a potential joint recruitment for general surgery. So I visited with 3 other affiliate hospitals, and they're on board with us. So I haven't really even had a chance to follow up with you on it, but we're going to visit with the physician recruiter and start the conversation about it for a long-term strategy. So we understand that you've got coverage right now, which is great, but we really want to look at a long-term strategy to see if we can kind of fill in some of the gaps. So we will get that started, and if Alva continues to want to participate in that, that's great. But we've got a couple of hospitals that it's hit or miss on if they get continuous coverage for, they just do basic scopes and stuff in most of them. But it's definitely dependent on somebody's schedule, whether they're busy or not. So if they get busy, then the hospital kind of gets dumped. So it's been something we've wanted to do.
Patients do the prep and then end up not doing the procedure. That's a turn
It
off.
happens a lot. It happens a lot.
Can you imagine?
Unfortunately. Yeah.
All that Gatorade you drink for nothing.
Not very good community service. So it's, now that we have some, a group of folks that are managed hospitals, we have a little bit more leverage in trying to move that forward. And if we can help some of our other affiliate partners along the way, then that would be great. So it would be, it's not going to be an easy recruit, obviously, because you got to find somebody who wants to, travel a couple of times a month. And so, well, at least 4 times to one community and 5, 6, 6 times a month potentially. But I firmly believe that person's out there somewhere. It may take us a little bit to get there, but it's something we've wanted to do for a long time. So we're going to start it, see what happens. We did have a call with BKD, and I know that Chris got to participate in that, so I know there's lots of conversations about the COVID funding, so I think everybody's kind of nervous and scurrying around as our 6:30 deadline is coming up. So we've tried to put things together for our affiliates, and they have that one-on-one opportunity to ask questions and kind of see what everybody else is doing, because I think it's definitely time to kind of, if we can all be on the same page, telling the same story when they come circle around, I think the better off we're all going to be, because they still don't have enough clarification on the rules, and so it would have been nice if they would have clarified a little bit more of it out. So we're still guessing, but we definitely know our deadline is 6:30, so we've just got to work with it. So, but that's all I have. Unless you have any questions for me.
With the closing of Fort Supply, I know that Buffalo was who took care of their patients.
Yeah, it's very concerning, because I think there was, 1,200 inmates, maybe 140?
At one time. I know that the challenge was, I think currently there's, what do you say, over 2,000 empty beds there at the moment.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it's a concern for that community, it really is. As you
I didn't know how much business was actually done by them there, but losing any business is not good.
Yeah, for the inmates themselves, probably not so much, but the employee base, I think there's
39.
140-ish employees, so that's certainly what they're concerned about. In both Laverne and Buffalo. They don't have a hospital in Laverne, but there's a clinic over in Laverne, so I don't know. It's disheartening when things like that happen, because we all know our little towns start kind of drying up a little bit when our industries and businesses go away.
Right.
But hopefully they can weather the storm, but definitely concerned.
Again. Bridget, thank you.
Yeah, you bet.
Greg, City Council report?
There was some concern with the monies on the homestead. How do I explain this, Rick? on,
Really?
we had a long discussion. I don't even know how to
I think
explain
we
it.
have a council person who's concerned about the contract between AHA and the homestead. That thinks there's not enough benefit to the city, that there's too many expenses for the city. And is asking that be basically reviewed to see if that needs to be modified.
The budget was approved, but it sounds like there's going to be some discussion on amending the budget. I don't think it'll ever fly, but I'm just telling this board that discussion happened. We passed the zoning ordinance that if there is expansions here, as far as, I don't want to say it, codes, that there is some flexibility now that if we would do anything, we wouldn't have to go to, it would be basically based on the year the building was built, and we have more of a personal discretion than just purely state codes, so to speak.
What they're talking about is, now if you start to renovate a building, you have to bring it up to code in every facet. This allows them to not have to do that to older pre-existing buildings. You have to do certain things, but it gives more flexibility. And so you can update part of your building and not have to move the full code.
Gotcha.
We are starting, we dissolve, I know, dissolve is not the word. The pool committee did what they needed to do. We're transitioning that pool committee into a basically funding committee, so to speak, that they're going to go out in the community and see what kind of contributions we can have for a city pool, where then that committee can then bring a budget to the city council to say, we have $1 million, we can buy $1 million pool or 500. That's what we have now. So we're transitioning from, we know the pool needs to be rebuilt. If you didn't get a chance to walk through it and in it and on it, it's worn out. I don't believe it can be, you can fix anything, but my stance now is for something, if you're going to spend $2 million on something to last 5 to 10 years, doesn't seem like a good option to me when something new, you're looking at 50 to 70 years. So that is the direction they're going, so they'll be coming around to foundations and individuals. I believe that's about the main part of the discussion that they most of the time.
All right. Thank you for sharing. Any questions for Greg? Okay. If not, next month, on our calendar in the back, it has us for July 27th. We need to move that to July 20th. July 20th for the
Cheesecake dinner.
Kiki, did you get that?
Or we don't have to meet. Either way, it would be easier just not to meet in July. July 20th for our July meeting. Okay? I don't have any items of new business, so we are...
It's my anniversary that month, just we invite Jim.
Why, sure.
Yeah.
You can have cheesecake